All right, so we are going to discuss about your CBT first paper questions. I hope all of you were able to solve the questions easily. So I hope the questions were not difficult to you. Everything was from your previous year topics and your potential topics that could be asked, right? So quickly I am going to discuss these 15 questions. The basic idea of discussion of these 15 questions is to tell you how to pick up the right answers. And of course, if you want to have a full detailed topic information, so you can always and always go back to your recorded lectures on your DAMS eMedicos app and quickly go through the topic to have a detailed overview, right? So here I'll be touching the points in regards to the options which is given in the question, right? Let's start. And a 55-year male has been diagnosed with open angle glaucoma and is on treatment. Okay, he has been prescribed eye drops, so he has been putting eye drops whose side effect is, what is this? There is difference of the color of the iris, and out of these 4 drugs, which drug can cause difference in the iris color, or this iris appears to be more pigmented? So which is the drug that leads to hyperpigmentation of the iris hyperpigmentation? Yes, the answer is prostaglandin analog. So the answer is D, which is latanoprost. The other drugs which are prostaglandin analogs, it is travoprost, right? It is even bimatoprost. So these are the other drugs. And timolol is beta blocker. It is beta blocker. Dorzolamide is carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, CAI. Epraklonidine is alpha agonist. So quickly, alpha agonist, which is the example, epraklonidine, which is the selective alpha agonist. This is non-selective, which is non-selective means alpha 1 and alpha 2, which is selective. So selective is, I am writing it here, it is brimonidine. This is your previous year question. Brimonidine is alpha 2 agonist. It is selective now because it is blocking only one receptor, which is alpha 2 receptor. But if I talk about non-selective, it will be epraklonidine. And beta blocker timolol is again non-selective beta blocker. NS means non-selective beta blocker. If I talk about selective beta blocker, which is S, I am mentioning it here with S. So it is betaxolol. It blocks only beta 1 receptors. Beta 1 blocker, while timolol is both beta 1 and beta 2 blocker. So you call it as non-selective. And dorzolamide, you all know, it is carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. The other drug is, which is sister of dorzolamide, it is brinzolamide. Done. Okay, let's move over to the next question. 62-year-old woman comes to the physician, increasing blurring of vision in both the eyes, right? She says blurring has made it difficult to read. So any question that you see with long stem, don't get scared. Most of the times these questions are pretty easy to attempt, right? So she also requires a bright light to look at objects. She reports that her symptoms began 8 years ago and have gradually gotten worse over time. So there is a long history. So she has hypertension is there, diabetes is there. So she is already on anti-hypertensive and anti-diabetic drugs. When looking at the Amsler grid, she says that the line in the center appear wavy and bent. So that means something has to do with the central part of the retina. And central part of the retina, we are talking of what? We are talking of macula, because Amsler grid, remember Amsler grid? So I had shown you in the class as well, there is a grid like this. You ask the patient to replicate this grid, so patient replicates. So if there is problem in the central retina or macula, so Amsler grid test is positive. So which of the following is the most likely diagnosis? Something related to the central retinal pathology. Now coming over to the options, one is CSR. Does it look like CSR? No. So this is the fundus image. And what are these things? What are these things? Can you tell me? What are these things? Small, small, small. My dear friends, this is actually your drusen. Remember, small drusen's are metabolic waste products which are present between retinal pigment epithelium and Bruch's membrane, and it is seen in which disease? It is seen in ARMD, which is age related macular degeneration. Macula means center, age related macular degeneration, right? Okay, now what will happen in CSR? Now you can say, sir, central serous retinopathy, Amsler rate is positive in CSR as well, but yes, but in CSR you won't see any drusen, so drusens are absent, if you remember, है ना. CME is cystoid macular edema. In cystoid macular edema you are going to see hard exudates, you are going to see edema in the macula, so hard exudates are generally seen in macular edema. And what about diabetic retinopathy? Of course, in diabetic retinopathy you will see exudates which can be hard, which can be soft. H means hard, S means soft, and also there can be dot blot hemorrhages. Because why I am ruling out diabetic retinopathy here? Because you know that even in diabetic retinopathy there can be CME, which is cystoid macular edema, but here I have ruled it out on the basis that there is absence of dot blot hemorrhages, because we already know which is the earliest feature which is diagnostic of diabetic retinopathy. It is microaneurysms, and these microaneurysms are eventually going to get ruptured and leading to dot and blot hemorrhages, right? So the answer is clear cut, ARMD plus the history devotes 62-year-old woman, and this is age related na, so the woman is aged, and there is slow progressive loss of vision, right? Okay, so this is a case of ARMD, age related macular degeneration. Next is 65-year-old patient comes to IOPD, complaints of gradual painless diminution of vision, so not able to see clearly in the night, complains of difficulty during night driving. Okay, so visual acuity 6/6 pinhole, no improvement. There must be some pathology now. If there is improvement on the pinhole, that means that patient is having refractory error, but here there is no improvement on pinhole. Rest, it is fine, it is fine, it is fine. So small lenticular opacities are seen, so it goes more in favor of a cataract. Now if I step up the question, okay, which cataract is this? Can you tell me based on the information which is given? Can you tell me? Yes, you can tell me. There is difficulty of vision during night driving. So night driving, so most probably the cataract must have been cortical. Why? Because in cortical cataract the opacity is present at the periphery, and that is why when the patient enters from bright lit room to dim room, so the pupil will dilate so that the rods which are lying at the periphery, they get stimulated, but since the opacity is at periphery, the patient is not able to appreciate good vision, appreciate the images placed in the dim light, right? Okay, so in cortical cataract there is a typical feature, you call it as nyctalopia, difficulty night vision, night blindness. Anyhow, but the examiner here wants to know is which procedure is being done. The given test is performed, so which is this test? So one thing the examiner has cleared to you, that it is a cataract based on the history. So in cataract, what would you do? What is this? What are you doing? You are actually doing a scan. What is a scan? A scan is the component of biometry. Biometry is a technique by which you measure the intraocular lens power, which is to be implanted into the eye during cataract surgery, right? There are two components of biometry. One is a scan, second is keratometry. Right? And this a scan is helpful for measuring of axial length of the eye, while keratometry measures the curvature of cornea. Based on the curvature of cornea, it tells you what is the power of cornea. So the answer to this question is a scan. Is it understandable? So this is a scan. There is a probe, you place it at the center of the cornea and it sends the ultrasound waves. These ultrasound waves strikes the retina and they are received back. Based on emission and receiving back, it measures the axial length, right? So the answer is A scan. चलो आगे चलते हैं. All are true regarding lens except, so it is based on the anatomy. So radius of curvature of anterior lens is 10 millimeter. Absolutely correct. Do you know that lens is biconvex while the posterior surface is more curved than anterior surface? So radius of curvature, this is 10 mm, but here since it is more curved, so this radius of curvature is 6 mm. So that is also correct, but they want to know which option is incorrect. Basement membrane of the anterior lens epithelium is thickest basement membrane of the body. Absolutely correct. So fourth is lens capsule is thickest at the posterior pole. No, it is thinnest at the posterior pole. It is thinnest at the posterior pole. So this is your biconvex lens and it is surrounded by a capsule. You call it as lens capsule. So this is anterior, this is posterior. So this is your previous year question. Center posteriorly is the thinnest. It is thinnest, right? So hence the answer, this is posterior pole. And what is anterior pole? This is your anterior pole. And what is this? This is your posterior pole. Is it understandable? Anterior pole and posterior pole. I hope it is understood. It is based on the anatomy of the lens, right? And please understand that anterior lens epithelium is present, but posterior lens epithelium is absent. Now my next question is, lens develops from which layer? Neuroectoderm, neural crest, mesoderm, endoderm, or surface ectoderm? So lens develops from surface ectoderm. Your again previous year question. Lens develops from surface ectoderm, right? So I gave you another important MCQ. Okay, now coming on to the next question. Side effect of oral steroid is, side effect of oral steroid, you already know that steroid has the tendency to cause both cataract and glaucoma, right? But I had specifically mentioned in the class, if you will give topical steroids, that means in the form of eye drops, if you will give topical steroids, it will lead to glaucoma. If you will give oral steroids, it will lead to cataract. But that does not mean that oral steroids will only lead to cataract and no glaucoma. I am talking of most commonly. So but here side effect of oral steroid is most commonly oral steroid causes cataract, hence is the answer here. If I talk about glaucoma, it will be via eye drops. So eye drops, topical steroid administration leads to most common glaucoma, but it can also lead to cataract, right? Okay, great. Let's move ahead. Next is earliest field defect in primary open angle glaucoma. See, one is just earliest visual field defect. So the answer to this question, ideally it should be isopter contraction. Isopter contraction, but that is not in the option. But please understand, isopter contraction is not the earliest specific visual field defect. Although isopter contraction is there, but this is non-specific. If the examiner asks which is the earliest specific visual field defect, then you are going to mark what? Paracentral scotoma. Paracentral scotoma. But is it in the options? Yes, can you please check and let me know if it is in the options? Yes, it is there in the options. What is the second name of paracentral scotoma? It is scotoma in Jerum's field or scotoma in Jerum's area. The other name of paracentral scotoma is scotoma in Jerum's area, which is earliest specific visual field defect in primary open angle glaucoma. Is it understandable? So that is your key. So I have pasted an image which tells you. So what is this? This is your paracentral scotoma. Paracentral scotoma, or you call it as scotoma in the Jerum's area, because this is the Jerum's area. Jerum's area starts from 10 degree of visual field and goes till 25 degree of visual field. Now since this paracentral scotoma lies in the Jerum's area, so you can use the term interchangeably, scotoma in Jerum's area. So that was the trick that the examiner played with you, है ना? So don't keep on searching. अरे sir, we had done isopter contraction, that is not in the option. अरे sir, we had done paracentral scotoma, that is not in the option. That's absolutely okay. It is one and the same. Done. I hope you are understanding this, है ना? Great. I am so proud of you, my FMG buddies. I know you people work so hard, and I am sure that you people will not only get the passing marks, but I am sure you people will rock, will nail the exam with beautiful score. I won't be surprised if you'll call me or if you'll message me, sir, I have got a score of 200, I have got a score of 210, 15, 20. I won't be surprised because I have myself taken your class and I have seen your potential, I have seen your dedication, so I can vouch for it, है ना? Okay. Now next question is, which of the following drug is contraindicated in glaucoma patient suffering from bronchial asthma? Simple. We know which receptors are present in the bronchus. The receptors which are present in the bronchus are beta 2 receptors. So beta 2 agonistic action, I am talking of agonist, causes bronchodilation, dilatation of bronchus. It causes bronchodilation. Now if you are going to give a beta blocker, which is of course non-selective, which is going to block both beta 1 and beta 2, it is not going to cause the beta agonistic action, which is dilatation of bronchus, so which will precipitate the attack of bronchial asthma. Since this is also a beta blocker, but we have just done that this is a selective beta blocker, it is only going to block the beta 1 receptors, not the beta 2. But remember, beta 2 receptors are present on the bronchus and its stimulation causes bronchodilation, right? Okay, hence the answer. A man present with frequent change of presbyopic lens. So presbyopia is, what is presbyopia? It is loss of near vision with respect to age. Why it happens? It happens due to weakening of the ciliary muscles. Presbyopia is due to weakening of ciliary muscles with age. With age means most commonly it is seen after 40 years. है ना? You must have seen your grandmother, your grandfather, your father, your mother, who are not usually myopic. They don't usually wear spectacles, but when they see onto mobile phone, when they read anything, when they need to sign anything, what they do? They wear spectacles. That is because of presbyopia, and it is all physiological. ये physiological होता है. This is physiological, right? Now there is a patient whose presbyopic glasses prescription number is increasing. What does that mean? What does that mean? So that means there is, what out of these four? Cataract, astigmatism, angle closure, open angle. The answer is open angle glaucoma. Why? Because if there is raised intraocular pressure which is there for the long time, because open angle glaucoma is chronic, while angle closure glaucoma is acute, है ना? So since open angle glaucoma is chronic, it is going to put a pressure on the ciliary muscles. It is going to cause the ischemia of the ciliary muscles, and as a result of which, what will happen? There will be ciliary muscle ischemia, and the ciliary muscles will become weak, and as a result there will be loss of accommodation. As a result, there is increase in presbyopic power. Is it understandable why I am putting so much stress to this one statement? Because this has been repeated multiple times. So the answer is open angle glaucoma. Done? All right. Moving on to the next question. Different refractive power between two eyes is known as simple definition. So different refractive power is known as anisometropia. And isometropia is when the two eyes are having different refractive powers. Now what is the baseline? The refractive power more than equal to 2.5 diopters. Then you call it as anisometropia. Ametropia is refractive error. Emetropia is, what is emetropia? Emetropia is no refractive error. If I am able to see everything without the spectacles, right? So that means I am emetropic, right? Now I am having myopia, so I am ametropic. So myopia is a type of ametropia. Hypermetropia is a type of ametropia, right? So, and what is anisoconia? Anisoconia is that there is change in the shape or size, difference in the shape and size of the object. You call it as anisoconia. When you don't really see the shape or size of the object of what actually it is, so you call it as anisoconia. Astigmatism is when the refractive power is different in different meridia. You know there are axis, x-axis, y-axis. So suppose at x-axis the power is -2 diopter, and at y-axis the power is -4 diopter, -2 -4. So you call this as astigmatism. Astigmatism. Is it understandable? So I have cleared you all these 4 terms which are important, can be asked like a single liner question. Okay, chalo next करते हैं. Next is, which gene is associated Knudsen two-hit hypothesis? We know Knudsen two-hit hypothesis is associated with which tumor gene? Retinoblastoma. And please understand, retinoblastoma is most common intraocular malignant tumor of childhood, which is the most common age of presentation, 18 months. And which chromosome is involved? 13q14. 13 means chromosome number, q means long arm, which is q, and 14 means band 14, right? And which gene is involved? Retinoblastoma na. Retinoblastoma means RB, so that is the answer. RB gene is involved. So here let me just tell you, this is the answer, and anisometropia is the answer, right? Okay, so which gene is involved? So it is retinoblastoma gene, which is 13q14. And please understand, which is the investigation of choice that you do in retinoblastoma. Please understand, retinoblastoma is a tumor which gets calcified, so it will be non-contrast CT scan is the investigation of choice. But if I may ask you, what is the investigation of choice to detect metastasis? It is MRI to detect metastasis, because it metastasizes through the optic nerve, and MRI interprets the status of optic nerve. So I gave you 2-3 more questions. Is it understandable? Okay, now next is pupillary reaction to light is still normal in lesion or injury too. For this I have put up an image of your light reflex pathway. Now what happens when there is stimulation of the retina? So light impulse passes from the retina to the retinal ganglion cells, to the retinal ganglion cells, to the optic nerve, to the optic nerve, to the optic chiasma, then to the optic tract, and then to the optic tract there is lateral geniculate body. Then it goes from lateral geniculate body to parietal lobe and temporal lobe. Then for parietal lobe, temporal lobe, it goes to occipital lobe, in which there is area 17, which is primary visual area. Then there primary visual area. Then there is area 18, which is secondary visual area. Is it understandable? Now if you will carefully look upon this diagram, so any impulse we talk about, any impulse, so has got 2 components. One is afferent component, another is efferent component. Afferent component is via optic nerve, pupillary light reflex. Efferent component is via oculomotor nerve. You already know that, है ना? So here you can see afferent component. This is your optic nerve, this is retina, retinal ganglion cells. So optic nerve, optic nerve, optic nerve, optic nerve, then comes optic chiasma. This is optic chiasma, then comes optic tract. So you can see that optic tract, the fibers from the optic tract are directly going into this part, which is pretectal nucleus of midbrain. From pretectal nucleus of midbrain, it will go into Edinger-Westphal nucleus, which is the nucleus of third cranial nerve, from where the third cranial nerve will start, and it will innervate the what? Sphincter pupillae, so that the pupil constricts. So here you can see this is Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So these are the fibers which are going, and this is what? This is your ciliary ganglion. Here it is made ciliary ganglion, and it will supply the sphincter pupillae. So this is the light reflex pathway, है ना? This is light reflex pathway. Now if there is damage to the proximal optic tract near lateral geniculate body, now you have seen that there is already turning of the fibers from the optic tract to the pretectal nucleus of midbrain without affecting the proximal optic tract. So if there is an injury here, will it lead to diminution of light reflex? So light reflex pathway is this, है ना, because the fibers have already turned before, so there will be no diminution of light reflex if there is injury to the proximal optic tract. Now let's see the options here. So it is normal in optic nerve. Can it be normal? No. Optic disc? Not at all. Optic disc is the point from where neuroretinal rim emerges and forms into optic nerve. Then optic chiasma? Not at all. Optic chiasma is very, very distal. Optic tract, they have not cleared whether this is proximal or distal, but I have told you that it is proximal optic tract. So here best option will mark is optic tract. Is it understandable? If there is lesion of the proximal optic tract, more specifically proximal optic tract, so there is typically sparing of the pupillary light reflex. Done? Okay. Now what are leash nodules? Don't confuse leash nodules with those of iris nodules. Iris nodules are seen, which are Koppi nodules and Basaka nodules. Don't confuse Koppi and Basaka nodules, which are seen in uveitis. We are talking of leash nodules. Iris leash nodules are seen in neurofibromatosis type 1. So neurofibromatosis is a condition in which there is another important tumor which we have read, that is optic nerve glioma. So optic nerve glioma is seen in neurofibromatosis type 1. Is it understandable? So leash nodules are typically seen in neurophy. This is one-liner question. You will be reading much about it in your medicine. So leash nodules, these are iris leash nodules. They are present in neurofibromatosis type 1. But type 1 is also associated with another abnormality which is of optic nerve. You call it as optic nerve glioma. Done? Okay. Which of the following muscle is affected in increased cranial pressure? So if there is increased ICT, remember we had discussed that we have seen a real patient in the class as well. That cute से हमारे सरदार जी छोटा बच्चा था, कितना cute था, है ना? So what was that? Increased intracranial pressure will have what? Will have a paresis of a muscle which is associated with stretching of one cranial nerve. You actually call it as false localizing sign. Remember, false localizing sign. False localizing sign is seen in raised intracranial pressure due to paresis of sixth cranial nerve. Sixth cranial nerve is abducent nerve which supplies lateral rectus, and as a result the patient has abduction defect. You already know, if I want to take the eyeball outside, you call it as abduction, inside adduction, upwards elevation or supraduction, downwards depression or infraduction. So increased intracranial pressure leads to false localizing sign which is due to sixth nerve paresis. Paresis means weakening, which is weakening. Sixth nerve paresis which is weakening, and that further leads to lateral rectus palsy. So what is the treatment? You simply decrease the intracranial pressure and lateral rectus will start to function again. So that is your false localizing sign. Done? Okay. Now next question please. Which among the following is associated with altitudinal visual field defect? Now we have read about many visual field defects. What is this visual field defect? If you could recall, what is this visual field defect? Can you recall? So this is your bitemporal hemianopia, and it is typically seen in which tumors? Pituitary tumors. If you remember pituitary macroadenoma, bitemporal hemianopia. Now altitudinal visual field defect is, so there is visual field defect on the lower half of the field, or it may even be on the upper half of the field, so you call it as altitudinal visual field defect. So this is just a one liner. It is typically seen in anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. So this question is kind of difficult, but that's okay, that's okay. So out of 15 questions, if you find one or two questions difficult, that's absolutely okay. So altitudinal visual field defect is seen in anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. What happens is, there is optic nerve head which is supplied by short posterior ciliary artery branches. If there is ischemia of the head of the optic nerve, so optic nerve fibers start to die, and when they start to die, if there is first damage to the inferior neuroretinal rim, so you know inferior neuroretinal rim contains the fibers from the inferior retina, and inferior retina interprets the superior visual field, so superior visual field of the patient will be lost. If there is damage to the fibers of the superior neuroretinal rim, and you know superior neuroretinal rim means fibers from the superior retina, and superior retina interprets the vision from the inferior retinal field, so inferior visual field hai na, so there be inferior visual field defect. So that is why there is altitudinal. So you basically, what is altitudinal visual field defect? Either just superiorly or inferior. Altitudinal, height, inferior, superior. So hence the term altitudinal visual field defect, right? Okay. Now next question, the junction between retina and ciliary body. So if I make the diagram, so this is your iris, then there is ciliary body, then there is, this is your retina, ciliary body. Okay, so if we talk from anterior to posteriorly, so there is iris, then there is ciliary body. Ciliary body is divided into two parts. Anterior part of ciliary body, you already know, this is anterior part, pars pliccata. This is posterior part of ciliary body. Both are the parts of ciliary body. So there is iris, then there is pars pliccata, then there is pars plana, and then there is starting of the retina, you call it as ora serrata. So peripheral most part of the retina is ora serrata, hence is the answer. So you can also say that the junction between retina and ciliary body is ora serrata. So this is sort of a googly question. If your concept is clear, you will be easily able to answer this question, right? So guys, this was your CBT test 1 questions. So I hope you were able to do most of the questions. Any doubt, any query you have, so if you want to know anything, any further query, maybe with some other topic, you can always and always let me know on my WhatsApp 9814111330. My name is, you all know, it is Dr. Manish. I am MS Ophthalmology, and then I did my fellowship in glaucoma from PGI MER Chandigarh. So you can get in touch with me anytime you want, any guidance, any query you have, academic query, non-academic query. My students already know, if you haven't attended my classes yet, so you can always and always get in touch with me, and my students already know that I am always available for all of you 24/7. So I hope to see you again in the DAM studio, where we'll be taking interviews and we'll be celebrating your success, and you will be sharing your success story with me, right? Chalo, take care. Thank you. Love to all of you. Bye bye.